If I had to choose between rice or quinoa, I choose rice every time. Quinoa sounds all like hip and trendy, even though technically it's like a very ancient grain. But rice, I mean, it's so good with like cream of chicken soup and cheese added to it. Quinoa, I don't know if it can hold up to that much cheesy goodness. Hi, I'm Lacey J. I'm an entrepreneur who started a social media agency at age 22. Weird, I know. I've been niching it down and building it up over the last 11 years, and a long 11 years they have been. Being on social media so much is hard on my and my team's mental health, so we work to find routines, balance, and focus on ethics that keep us showing up authentically online. If you manage social media accounts and you feel confused, unfocused, or straight up wackadoo, welcome to the club. We meet here once a week. Hello and welcome back. I am happy to have you here. Today we're talking about what's working on social media this July, okay? So I've got a couple of points that I've taken from our group here at Spry, but I'm very interested in what is working well for you as well. So let's take a look. First thing I want to talk about is user-generated content, okay? User-generated content, often referred to as UGC, is basically getting content from your community that you can then use as your own post content. So we've got a couple of clients that we do a really good job with this for. One of them is a helicopter manufacturer, okay? And over the course of multiple years of managing their account, we've developed this really nice workflow that, one, promotes the acquisition of user-generated content, two, makes content creation more efficient, and three, creates more engaging content because it's relatable. It's not quite as over-polished or overdone, overproduced from a brand perspective. So the best way that you can get user-generated content happening for your brand starts with consistent presence management. We talk about this on the podcast fairly often. What is presence management? Presence management is basically being present on the platforms that you are trying to promote your content through. So that means if you're on Facebook, you are responding to comments consistently, you are checking for direct messages, and you are responding to direct messages consistently. Same thing with Instagram, with Twitter. Really, the secret of it is being present on the platforms. It's communicating with your customers, with your community members in a way that is human, as a real person, messaging back and forth. So the way that you make this work properly does take a very solid workflow. So that means who's doing what. Let's say, for instance, you get a direct message. For this helicopter client specifically, this happens a lot. We'll get a Facebook message, and who is the one who's responsible for going into that direct message? There are different ways to do that. One is just from a corporate level. You can say it is this person's responsibility to be checking DMs regularly. Another way is actually inside a Facebook Business Suite. You can assign people to direct messages within the platform there. So that's another way. If you've got a large team and you need to make sure that the right people are getting assigned, that can happen inside a Facebook Business Suite. So who is managing the direct messages? Okay. When you are in direct messages, let's say someone sends you a photo, okay? It's your job then to figure out, now what do I do with the photo? You've got to save it somewhere, right? So there's got to be some consistent folders that you end up saving content to. There's got to be some consistent naming mechanisms that you use in order to make photos findable. There's got to be a consistent way that you tag whether or not this person who sent the photo wants you to share it. If they do want you to share it, do they want you to give them photo credit? And do you need permission beforehand to share it? So that's a big part of the workflow. Let's say we're on Instagram now, okay? And someone has shared an Instagram story and tagged your brand in it. Okay, what's your workflow look like then? Are you coming through and sharing that story to your own story? Great. That's like 2-star presence management. Okay. You want to up it to 5-star presence management. Then you're going to be sending a message to that person, thanking them for sharing that piece of content and tagging you, asking them, is this something where you'd be willing to share that photo with us so that we can use it in our own content as well? That's where things get this really next level, where you're actually building human relationships with the people who are promoters of your brand. And what more could you want with a social media community than having people who are, they're doing the marketing work for you. That's the beauty of really good social media, is building these relationships with people who make your job much, much easier in the long run. So start thinking about how you can utilize presence management to create a really solid workflow that makes your content creation process easier and makes your content more engaging by trying to start getting some user-generated content coming through. Some evidence that it works, in case you're questioning me in any way. This client that we were talking about specifically recently had a piece of content that organically, no ads, nothing, reached over 90,000 people. One post, organic. The client only has, I say only, 15,000 or so Facebook followers, but the piece of content reached 90,000 people. Okay, so 6 times the number of people who follow the page this content reached organically. That is beautiful evidence of how impactful content can be when you've built this rapport over multiple years with a thriving community. Okay. It got nearly 1,000 reactions too. Okay. Again, organically, 1,000 reactions. How's your content doing? Is it doing that good? I don't know. Let's talk about a few other presence management strategies. Commenting on other people's content can be a very good presence management strategy, especially if you're doing it in a way that's authentic and genuine. I've got a client that I work with on a consulting basis who runs a premium weightlifting. They're a premium weightlifting manufacturer, so they have dumbbells and kettlebells and that kind of thing. And they've built this really thriving community of about 4,000 people on Instagram who are customers or wish they could be customers or have used the products at gyms or weightlifting facilities before. And our job as the brand, we spend way more time engaging in other people's content than we ever spend creating content. We put out 1 post per week, a single post per week on Instagram. But we probably spend 6 hours a week on Instagram engaging with our community. So what are they posting? We're going through their feed. We're liking, we're commenting on their content. We're watching their stories. Okay? Like, how much time have you spent from a brand perspective watching the stories of the people who you are following, people who are within your community, engaging with their stories, engaging in DMs? Ever since we started that practice about 1.5 years ago, consistently, we end up getting multiple posts per week that people are tagging us in. And then we do that exact same workflow that I was talking about with the helicopter client. We thank the person for tagging us in the piece of content. We ask for the original piece of content and ask for permission to share it. And we ask if we can tag them in it. That ends up becoming our entire content plan, is utilizing this user-generated content, tagging people, which increases the exposure of our content, which increases the engagement, which makes our community grow at a higher rate. Beautiful practice. In conclusion on this idea around presence management strategies, you just have to be present on the platforms, okay? It's a line item that we include on any of our managed services as an agency, is being present on the platforms. Engaging in DMs, comments, responding to comments, building relationships with people in the community. It's like, if you imagine that these people, these numbers of followers are real people, because they are, the ability that you have to grow and engage your community just skyrockets, okay? Just think about them. That 4,000, those 4,000 people or however many that you have in your follower list, those are real people. They're eating lunch right now. And what can you do to delight them? What can you do? It'll make your content so much better. Okay, now I've got a specific strategy that I want to talk about that's working well right now, and it's geo-targeted ads. Now, we all know that we can target a region, a few states, cities, etc., when we are creating ads on social media. Now, let's say, for instance, we're in the summer now, and in the summer, now that we're a bit past the isolation of the heavy pandemic seasons, conventions are coming back. This summer, there are tons of conventions that are having their first time back since 2019. So people are going to conventions like crazy. Also, airline tickets are like really expensive. So if you're trying to take advantage of these conventions that are happening in your industry without having to purchase an airline ticket and actually be there, you can actually do that with really hyper-focused geo-targeted ads, okay? So let's say, for instance, you are a supplier for home builders. I don't know what kind of supplies. You need wood, you need concrete, I don't know, whatever. You're a supplier. But you don't want to go to the convention that's happening in likely Las Vegas. Too much for airline tickets. You're not interested in traveling. Instead, you could create a specific audience that is targeted around the 1 mile radius that the convention is happening. Maybe it's happening at a convention center. Maybe it's happening at a hotel. You could geo-target 1 mile around that location and hit anybody who's coming in and out of that location during a specific time period. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, there's tons of people who are coming to that location who are not there for the convention, so how do I focus even more? So then you can actually layer in things like interests. So let's come back to this home builder and home building supply relationship or transaction. I might add in an interest of construction, okay? Okay, I want anybody who's going to be around this 1 mile radius who's interested in construction. Let's say I want to layer it even further. Maybe I'm going to add an income range, top 25% of their area. So now maybe what I'm hitting is not only somebody who's interested in construction in that 1 mile radius, but maybe I'm hitting the owners of those home building companies now because I've added this income layer on top of the interest layer on top of the region layer. Make sure when you're doing this that you narrow your audience properly. Naturally, if you add an interest of construction, then you add an income range. What you're doing is or variables, okay? So we're hitting people in this 1 mile radius who are interested in construction or who are in this percentage of income range. There's a little button that's kind of hidden sometimes when you're creating your audience that says narrow audience. And when you hit narrow audience, instead of it being an or with the two variables, it's an and with the two variables. So if you're wanting to hyper focus, make sure that you're finding that narrow audience button so that you're creating those and variables and niching your audience down more instead of creating or variables that actually broaden your audience. Hey, if you're looking for ways to build your foundational social media strategy skills, we've got a course for that. I worked with Adrian Harvey, who's the lead digital strategist at Spry, has a master's in digital media, and has worked in digital marketing for over 10 years to create this course. The course is called Social Media on Purpose, and it takes all of the lessons we've learned over our combined 24 years in the industry and distills them down into bite-sized lessons for you to enjoy. If you're interested, check it out at thinkspry.com/courses. Also, we're kind of cute and funny if that's important to you. Okay, I hope that this content has been super helpful for you. I hope that it makes your advertising and your presence management easier throughout this month and yields better content for you long term. Before you head out, though, I want to just talk about the importance of grace. I think that most of us are doing the best that we can all the time. And especially with the people who are close to us, I think grace is a value that can lead to good relationships, loyalty within relationships. And it's something that I really hope that the people who love me most can extend to me as well. So have a little grace in your day. Have a little grace from me. I forgive you ahead of time for whatever you've done. Grace can help you move forward in a more focused way instead of shaming yourself. So I hope you have a great week. I hope you keep learning, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Social Media with Lacey J is brought to you by Spry Social Media Marketing. Edited and produced by Chad Hinman. And executive produced by Lacey J. Fott.